Hello, I'm here today with Carol McAtee, founder of a CPA firm in St. Petersburg, Florida. Hello, Carol.
Hello, Bob.
So, Carol, today we're going to talk about how somebody goes about choosing the right type of entity for their business. And the word entity, people don't necessarily understand what that means. In the context of the business world, what does an entity mean?
Well, an entity is a separate legal structure that you would operate a business under, for instance. So it is separate from the individual. It's a separate legal structure.
Okay, so it's something that you create that's separate from you, and it has its own identity and rights and responsibilities.
That's correct.
Okay, and so when you get ready to choose the type of entity that you want, like how many different kinds are there to choose from? Like what are the most common types of things people do?
Yeah, the most common are the sole proprietorship, the partnership, the S corporation, C corporation, or a limited liability company, also known as an LLC.
Okay, and so what are some of the factors that you would want to consider when you're making your selection?
Well, there's tax considerations in the entity you select. There's also liability issues, also ownership and types of owners that you're going to have in your entity, and as well as flexibility is another consideration.
Okay, and when you say the types of owners, do you mean like the type of person, or can owners sometimes be another corporation?
That's correct, yes. The owner is someone, either whether it's an individual or an entity or a trust, if they're the owner of an entity. So certain structures, certain types of entities, you cannot have certain types of owners. There are restrictions on those.
Okay. Okay, and you mentioned earlier about liability protection. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Well, liability protection is a characteristic that you receive in a C corporation, an S corporation, a limited partnership, and also the limited liability company. The one type of entity where there is no liability protection is the sole proprietorship.
Okay, and then as people are thinking about the type of entity they're going to select, I assume that taxes is one of the main concerns.
Yes, it is for everyone.
And so tell us a little bit about that, the tax issues in the various entities.
Sure. Well, like for instance, a sole proprietorship. This form of entity does not file its own tax return. It is reporting its income and expenses on the individual owner's tax return. Because once again, it's usually limited to one owner, and that one owner reports the income and expenses on their individual tax return. Then you go to what we call flow-through type entities, which are S corporations and partnerships, and even certain forms of limited liability companies are treated as flow-through entities. And what that means is that the entity itself is going to file its own tax return. However, it's not going to pay tax on its profits. Instead, the profits are going to flow through to the individual owners of that entity, and they're going to pay tax on it on their individual tax return at their individual tax rates. Now, opposite to that would be a C corporation. A C corporation is not a flow-through entity. It reports its profits on its own tax return and pays taxes on those profits. And then those profits are usually distributed out to the shareholders, and then the shareholders typically will pay tax on those distributions, which is why you've heard the terminology double taxation.
Okay. So why would somebody choose to have a C corporation if there's potential for double taxation?
Well, one of the reasons is a C corporation has no limitations on the type of owners or the number of owners. So that is a major benefit to a C corporation. Another benefit to a C corporation is oftentimes you want to take advantage of the low tax bracket for the first $50,000 of taxable income, which is taxed at 15%. So that can often be another reason that you might want to form a C corporation.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned earlier about flexibility, and it's the LLC that has the most flexibility?
Yes, that's correct. In fact, this is one of their most important characteristics. For tax purposes, an LLC can be treated as any of the entities we've just discussed.
Okay. Okay, and then In regard to the number of owners, you said a sole proprietorship obviously has one owner. Are there limits on the number of owners with the other entities?
There is, only the S corporation has a limit to the owners. Partnerships and C corporations, it's unlimited.
Okay. And is it the same number that is the limit in every state for the S corporation?
Yes, that is
So
a federal,
federal?
that's a federal, yes, that's a tax law. Federal.
Okay. And so when someone forms an entity, they can form the entity in a different state from where they actually live?
Yes, they can. When they do that, though, generally speaking, that state is going to require them to have a registered agent in that state. So that's usually going to require paying a registered agent fee to someone who physically resides in that state.
Okay. Okay. And so it sounds to me like there are a lot of different factors to be considered when you start a new business and you have to select an entity. And is it fair to say that if somebody in that situation was to commission a CPA to help them in the selection, that down the road and even immediately it might help them save money or save other problems that they might encounter?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, when starting a business or acquiring an existing business, one of the most important decisions is the entity selection. This is going to could potentially stay with you for the whole duration that you have a business. So you definitely want to make sure that the entity you're selecting is going to fit your specific needs and give you the greatest tax benefit.
Okay, and so it's important to select the right one at the beginning because it's not so easy to change it if you wanted to.
That's
Is that
correct. That's correct. It's not necessarily easy to change, and there can be tax consequences to changing the type of entity.
Okay, all right. Well, Carol, this has been very informative. If someone wants to reach you here at Carol McAtee and Associates, what's your phone number here?
Our phone number is 727-327-1999.
Okay, and also I understand that you have a blog, carolmcatee.com.
That's correct.
And there's other articles and information on the blog as well, and it's going to be constantly updated with new information.
Yes, yes. So please, I invite everyone to visit our blog.
Great, it's carolmcatee.com.
Yes.
All right, thank you again, Carol. This was great.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.